Welcome to the Grizzled Warmaster, everyone. My name is Doug Jankowski, and we are going to be jumping back into Age of Sigmar competitive track with this new look at the Lumineth Realm-lords. This is going to be a faction-focused video. It's going to be kind of an overview. It's not going to be your traditional look at a battle tome. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything, but we are going to take a look at the major rules, the allegiance abilities, the different battle traits, and the grand allegiance, or what do they call it? Great nations, just some of the basics. And then in separate videos, I'll look at what I would consider to be competitive lists, kind of delve more into the war scrolls and some of the battalions, and how I think this army is going to be played, what I think its strengths and weaknesses are. And then at some point in the future, when we've had a time to interact on these videos, I'm going to have a faction refocus where I address questions and comments that people have brought up about the army. I have, at this point, obviously with things that have been going on in 2020, continue on here into 2021, I have not had a chance to play my Lumineth Realm-lords, but I have seen a few videos, a few battle reports online, so I've got an idea of what this army can do on the table from those perspectives, as well as just kind of the general knowledge of rules I have from being in the tournament circuit for a few years. So let's go ahead and dive into the Lumineth Realm-lords. First, here's the things we're going to cover in this overview. We're going to look at allegiance abilities and the great nations. One thing I will say is we are not going to delve into the spell lore. We'll do that more when we talk about tactics for this army. And we're not going to look at the individual command traits or artifacts, because I don't think this is an army that you're ever going to not take one of the great nations. There are some really strong things that there's some strong options there. So you're never going to say, yeah, I'm going to give up those great nations and I'm going to go with this cool command trait. There aren't any that are that cool. All right. So let's look at the basic battle traits for the Lumineth Realm-lords that will affect the entire army. First of all, you have Aether Quartz reserves. This is a lot like the Kharadron Overlord's Ether Gold. Basically, each unit will have one Aether Quartz reserve, same as the Ether Gold for the Kharadron Overlords. And they can do one of these things here, is they can give you heightened reflexes, which is +1 to save, heightened senses, +1 to hit, magical boost, which is a +1 to cast or re-roll a cast. And actually, I left one off my list here, and that is and I forget the title of it, but it's the ability to cast an additional spell in the hero phase. Aether Quartz does have a couple of limitations. One is that you can only use one Aether Quartz per phase, unless you're the Syar Great Nation, which allows it has a command ability that allows you to use more than one. The other thing is, much like the Ether Gold, is if you use your Aether Quartz reserve, you are -1 bravery for the rest of the game. That is, unless you have a Vanari Cathalar, I think that's how you pronounce it. They have the Absorb Despair ability. So you have to have a Cathalar in your army to use this next battle trait, the Absorb Despair. And they can take that -1 leadership from a unit wholly within 18 inches of the Cathalar, and they can project it onto an enemy unit that is within 18 inches. So that enemy unit would instead get the -1 bravery for the entire game. And that is just the first of a lot of bravery shenanigans this army can do, and I think it's going to be a really powerful way to play this army. Their next ability are lightning reactions, and this is kind of reminiscent of old fantasies, always strike first. I'm glad they did it this way. I think this is a pretty good way to do it. There are too many armies who are stacking up the fight at the beginning of the fight phase, or the combat phase, or make somebody fight at the end. Instead of all of that, when you pick a unit to fight in the combat phase, once that has been resolved, you can immediately choose another unit to fight in the fight phase or in the combat phase. So I think it's a good way to do it. That means that very often you'll see when we delve into ways to build this army in future videos, unless you're getting charged all over the place, you are rarely going to have more than 2 units in combat at the same time. Things have kind of devolved at that point if you're getting stuck into 3 or plus combats. But anyway, it is going to make enemy armies really think twice about engaging more than one of your units. All right, and then the last battle trait you have is the Great Nations, which, like I said, there are 4 of them, and there are some really good ones. There's one that's just, I don't think anybody's ever going to take it, but we'll delve into that in a minute. Now, we do also have 2 distinct different varieties, I guess, of the elves. The first are the Vanari, and you can see them on the screen here. Those are your sentinels, the bow guys, your wardens, the pikemen, and your dawn riders, the cavalry, obviously. They have a battle trait that is unique to them, and that is the Shining Company. In order to be in a Shining Company, your models have to be base to base with at least 2 other models. So all of the models in the unit will have to be base to base with at least 2 other models. So as soon as that breaks up, you're no longer in the Shining Company. The benefits you get for being in the Shining Company is enemies suffer -1 to hit you, whether in missile or melee, but you cannot run or charge while you're in the Shining Company. To leave the Shining Company, you just have to be in a situation where at least 1 model in your unit is no longer base to base with 2 others. So that could be at the end of one of your movements. It could be as a result of taking damage. Whatever that is, once that Shining Company is broken, you can never go back into the Shining Company. So something to keep in mind there. I think this is going to be, especially from the battle reports I've seen, this can make the elves surprisingly tanky. Especially when you've got that Aether Quartz reserve that you can use to give yourself +1 armor. Now suddenly you've got pikemen who most people are hitting on 4s, maybe 5s. So they're missing from 1/3 to 1/2 to 2/3 of their attacks. And then you're giving yourself a 3-up armor save instead of the 4-up you have base. So they can be surprisingly tanky. All right, the next variety that we have here, and I'm going to clarify because we're getting some rumblings. I'm going to make a separate video about this, about other units coming out for this army, because right now this is not a complete army. It is very obviously incomplete. There are only 10 war scrolls in this book, so I should have actually titled this. They are described in this battle tome as Alarith, but the Alarith are elementary elves. That is, they're elemental elves. In this case, the Alarith are the mountain elves, and I think the rumors that are coming out is we're going to get some wind elves, and probably at some point in the future we're going to get some water elves as well. But for now, we've got the Alarith, which are the mountain elves, and they have the battle traits Enduring as Rock, which allows them to ignore Rend of 1, which is pretty good, especially if you really want to play these guys. And the units you see on here are the different mountain spirits, the Alarith Stone Guard, and the Alarith Stone Mage. If you want to play an army that's based on all of these guys, there is a Great Nation for you that makes that Enduring as a Rock even better. Then they have the Tectonic Force, which is, it could be useful in forcing enemies off of objectives, but it's kind of a really finicky rule. Basically, you can choose an enemy at the end of the combat phase. You can choose an enemy that is within 1 inch of you, and you can force them to move 2 inches away from you, or from any Alarith unit. Then you can follow them up 1 inch. So like you said, if you are very close to being on an objective or very close to getting more of them off the objective than there are you on it, this could be an awesome ability. But I think by and large, it's just kind of finicky. It's going to be hard to work. All right, now let's go ahead and dive into these great nations. And the first one up is the one I was telling you about that has to do with the Alarith, and that is Ymetrica. And I'm just going to go with how I think these things will be pronounced. I've not heard any GW people pronounce them out loud, so who knows how they're really supposed to be pronounced. But anyways, the battle trait you get for this great nation is Mountain Realm. Like I said, this turns Enduring as a stone from Ignore Rend 1 to Ignore Rend 1 and 2. Really powerful. I've seen a battle report where an Alarith army played, and they really can tank. They really can tank. It turns them into dwarves, basically. No, I don't know. Anyways, 4-up armor save, ignoring Rend 2, 2 wounds each on the Alarith Stone Guard. They can do some stuff. The command ability, I don't know that it's all that useful. Redouble Force is essentially each Alarith unit who has used Tectonic Force can spend a command point, or you can use a command ability to do it for a second time, but it has to be against a different unit. So if somebody's locked up by 2 units, you can kind of push them both back and then kind of reposition how you want your units to be against them. Again, okay, but I don't think you're going to see people wasting command points on this too often. They have a command trait, Almighty Blow, which essentially you give up your attacks to instead deal mortal wounds on a 2+. This is not that big a deal because the 2 heroes that currently are in the book and could take this are both wizards. One only has 1 attack and the other one has D3. Neither one of them is super reliable, or either one of them could easily give up their attacks in order to cause D3 mortal wounds on a 2+. So I guess it's okay. And then the next one the artifact for this unit is Mountain's Gift. This is kind of like, I forget what the artifact or the ability was that one of the Slaanesh, I think it was a command trait actually, where once you have made an attack, you can decide to do +1 damage. There it was, I think you do a D3 extra damage. But here, 1 attack each round, you can have it do +1 damage. Okay, not too, again, like I said, they're wizards, so if you're in that position, you really don't want to be there. It does also give them a 6-up damage prevention roll to ignore wounds and mortal wounds, as well as a ignore spells on 5+. So you ignore the effects of enemy spells on a 5+. It's an okay one. I don't think somebody's probably going to go all in with Alarith. I just don't think that's the strength of this army right now. So I don't see Ymetrica being played in a lot of competitive lists. I just don't think that's the way competitive's going to go. Speaking of, I'm going to do another one out of order. I'm skipping the main one. We'll get there, and I think everybody probably knows what it is. But here is probably the worst of the great nations, Iliatha. They have 2 battle traits because they don't have a command trait. The first is Soulbound. Probably the best thing they have is add 2 to the bravery of Vanari and Elementary units in your army, which is essentially everybody except for the mountain guy, the spirits of the mountain. It's good because elves don't have the greatest bravery. They range anywhere from 6 to 8 for the normal non-named guys, so they could use that help. But again, that's the only thing in this one that's really super great. The next battle trait they have is Unity of Purpose. When only Vanari units use a command ability, you can pick another friendly Vanari unit within 3 inches to also benefit from that command ability. So if you had 2 units of archers next to each other, you could give one of them volley fire to reroll ones to hit in the shooting phase, and then the other one would benefit from it at the same time. That's not bad, but again, it's not the most competitive abilities for these great nations. The command ability is a stupid one. I mean, I don't know what the people were thinking when they wrote this. It's strike in unison, and it is essentially volley fire or all-out attack. You pick to use the command ability either in your shooting phase or in your combat phase, and you get to reroll ones to hit. That is what volley fire and all-out attack. So there are already command abilities that do this. So I'm really not sure why this exists at all. Then they've got an artifact that is the Simulacra Amulet. Not bad. It's one of the, we've seen this in a lot of other armies. The first time the bear is slain, roll a die on a 4+. All the wounds allocated to it are healed, and any wounds remaining to be allocated are negated. Cool, but when you're talking 5 wound heroes, as currently is what we've got, it's not... I don't know that it's all that great an ability, but it's okay. But again, I don't think you will ever see Iliatha played competitively. All right, next one. These next two, I think, are the top contenders for competitive lists. And it really depends on how you want to play the army, how you would like to try overcoming your enemies. So this one is Zaitrec. These are the super wizards. Everybody, all elven armies are going to be wizards unless they go all in on the Alarith, and the only thing they have are stone mages. But anyways, their battle trait is Lambent Mystics. They get a +1 to the first casting, dispelling, or unbinding roll, and I misspelled roll there, for each friendly wizard, each hero phase. So that's cool. Generally speaking, most of your guys are only going to cast once, but they could spend an Ether Quartz to cast a second spell, but they'll have that +1 casting the first spell they cast. And if you have Teclis in the list, which this is the list this is the great nation that's going to benefit greatly from Teclis, but if you want to run an army without Teclis, this might be the one to go because you're still going to be magically powerful. So either way, if you have Teclis with you, now you're looking at all of your wizards, which are all your Vanari units, your Cathalar, as well as Teclis himself, and your Stone Mage. They're all going to be casting at +2 as long as they're within Teclis's aura. So they'll be casting, dispelling, and unbinding at a +2. Excuse me. In addition to that, each friendly wizard's going to know 1 extra spell. So all your Vanari, your Cathalars, and your Stone Mages are all going to know 2 spells instead of just knowing 1. Well, they're actually technically going to know 3, because if we skip down to the bottom here, they all know the spell Overwhelming Heat. All right, the command trait for this great nation is Fast Learner. So the general here can unbind 1 additional spell. And when they're re-rolling, or they can re-roll the second unbinding attempt they make. So in a army that has Teclis, their first dispel will be at +2, and then their second one will be at +1 with the ability to re-roll it if you need to. So pretty powerful. Without Teclis, it's still a +1 on the first one and then a re-roll on the second one, so not bad. Their artifact also is really good. The Gift of Selenar. It's a 6-up damage prevention roll, but it becomes a 4-up if Teclis is on the table and is in your army. So that is really good, especially when you look at the wizards in this army, the hero wizards, the Cathalar and the Stone Mage, who are both very fragile. 5 wounds, 5-up armor saves. They need something to get them. If Teclis is in your army, or even if he's not, they do have the protection of Teclis, or the protection of Hish, which is a bubble, either 9 inches for the regular spell or 18 inches for Teclis's version of 5-up damage prevention rolls. So they need that to survive. This gives your general just that little bit more edge on it. When you consider how important Cathalar are to this army, that could be a really good item to have available. And I already talked about all of your wizards will know Overwhelming Heat. It's casting value 7, range 24 inches, and the target has to be visible to the caster. That enemy unit then is half move and takes a D3 mortal wounds if you roll equal to or greater than their armor on a D6. So pretty good. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of stuff that hampers the enemy's ability to move, to charge, to or sometimes even fight. So that's another. There's a lot of great magic in this army. So, all right, let's look at the last great nation, and the one that I think hands down is going to be the most popular in competitive. And I forgot to change the name. It is not Zaitrec. It is Syar. Syar. I don't know if that's the way everybody's going to pronounce it, but that's the way I'm pronouncing it for now until I hear better. The battle trait for these guys is Gleaming Brightness. They start with 2 ether quartz instead of 1. And those ether quartz are really, really good. Especially with the Cathalar there to mitigate the -1 leadership. It's going to be great. They have the command ability, Deplete Reserves. This is the 1 unit within 18 inches of a Syar hero can use an ether quartz even if another unit has already used one. That allows you to have more than 1 ether quartz spent in a particular phase. So if you wanted 2 units to have +1 armor because they're being shot, or 2 units to get +1 to hit because they just got charged or something, it gives you a lot to work with the ether quartz. They have the command trait Goading Arrogance, which is the general can pick an enemy hero within 6 inches, and they can only target this general. Then they also have the +1 to hit enemy hero that they choose. However, considering the 2 heroes you have right now are these kind of frail mages, you're not going to use the second half very often, but you could definitely have a Cathalar sitting behind a unit of pikemen within 6 inches of an enemy hero, but more than 3 inches away so they can't get to him. And then you taunt that enemy hero who can't attack the pikemen that they just charged or that they've engaged in combat. So that is a pretty good ability. At first I thought, man, without a combat hero, that's kind of silly, but it could be pretty good. You do have to be careful with positioning, but it still can be pretty good ability. Finally, you have the artifact, the Perfect Blade. Basically, it's, again, pretty cool, especially as we get more and more armies that can mess with the ability for you to hit and wound, giving you minuses to hit, minuses to wound, whatever. Basically, with this weapon, any unmodified 3+ will always hit, will always wound, and an unmodified 3 or less to save against this blade will always fail. Doesn't matter how many pluses they have, whether they have a 2-up armor save. Doesn't matter if they roll a 3 or less on the die, they fail to save. So, not the greatest ability currently with just our 2 wizard heroes, but I'm going to be making a separate video about this. We just got some kind of teases on a combat hero, a cavalry combat hero that should be coming out for the Lumineth soon. Thank you all for tuning in to our Lumineth Realm-lords overview. If you would, please click that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, share this video with your friends. We're trying to grow our subscriber count. Hit that like button so we'll get out to more people, in front of more people with the YouTube algorithm. And just keep checking back. We're going to be putting out more content coming soon throughout the coming weeks. We're trying to ramp up our production. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for supporting us. You guys have a great day.